Welcome to Galactic Tales YT, where the world of science fiction comes to life through powerful stories, emotional journeys, and breathtaking adventures across the stars. The alien girl wept from hunger. Then her sister walked into the human's tent. HFY tale. The sun exploded at 9:17 a.m. Or at least, that's what it looked like, over New Berlin. A brilliant flash burned the sky, turning daylight into white fire. Cars crashed. People screamed. Drones fell from the sky like dying birds, but it wasn't the sun. It was a ship bigger than any building, glowing with blue veins and covered in armor that looked alive. Commander Darrell Bourne watched it fall from his desert outpost. For a second, he thought it was a comet. Then it started firing. The war began without warning. Nobody had time to speak. The enemy didn't make announcements. No threats, no demands. Only fire. Within the first hour, 7 cities were reduced to glowing ash. Earth's defense satellites? Gone. Every screen, every signal was taken over by one image, a tall alien woman with silver skin and glowing eyes. You are not ready. But you are interesting. You fight. That makes you dangerous. Now we will study you. She was Lady Alara Kavari, a noble of the Zarkalian Empire, and she had just declared Earth her new laboratory. Darrell stood in the war room of a hidden underground base. Red lights flashed. Air shook from distant explosions. They're not trying to conquer us, said Dr. Lena Marks, a xenobiologist. They're trying to understand us. Like scientists, but crueler. Study us? What for? Darrell asked. They think we're useful. For breeding. For testing. Maybe even for upgrading themselves. Darrell clenched his jaw. So they came to break us open like toys. Lena didn't answer. She didn't need to. The first battle came fast. Zarkalian drones attacked a refugee convoy outside Istanbul. Children, elders, civilians, but they didn't expect one thing. Humans don't run. Not always. The convoy had 2 ex-Marines, 1 mechanic, and a grandmother with an old shotgun. When the smoke cleared, 12 drones were down. The humans lost half their people, but they left a message behind. We're not your prey. In orbit, Lady Kavari watched the footage. Her face remained calm. Too calm. They suffer. They lose. And still, they fight. How inefficient. Her second-in-command stepped forward. Shall we exterminate them? Kavari tilted her head. No. Let's see what happens when you push them farther. On Earth. Darrell was leading a mission near Rio. Intel said the enemy had landed a small research outpost there. He brought 14 soldiers. Only 3 came back alive. But they brought something else too. A prisoner, Zarkalian, young, scared, bleeding blue blood. Darrell stood over her in the base's medbay. She had refused to speak. Until now. You don't scream, she whispered, shaking. Even when we melt your bones, why? Darrell didn't answer right away. His eyes were tired, but sharp, because we've been through worse, he said. Then he walked away. The next day, humans destroyed their first Zarkalian ship. Not with high-tech weapons, with stolen tools, smart traps, and sheer anger. It shouldn't have been possible, but that was the problem with humans. They didn't know what impossible meant. Lady Kavari watched the burning remains of her lost vessel. Her silver fingers trembled slightly. She turned to the stars. You messed with humans, she said softly. Bad move. Then she smiled. Let's see why I won't survive. The aristocrat and the soldier Lady Alara Kavari had never seen a human up close until one bled on her palace floor. He wasn't supposed to survive. Her soldiers had dragged him in. Half dead, eyes swollen shut, ribs shattered. Yet even chained, broken, and drugged, he glared at her like he was the one in control. You look like a rat, she said coldly. The man coughed blood and smiled. Then you shouldn't corner a rat. His name was Commander Darrell Bourne, and he had just become her new experiment. Zarkalian palace ships didn't have prisons. They had observation chambers, white walls. No shadows. No privacy. That's where they kept Darrell. Not as a soldier. As a sample, Lady Kavari visited daily, not out of kindness. Out of curiosity, she had studied thousands of species. Watched a Kreen warrior eat its own hand in submission. Witnessed a Volnai priest set himself on fire rather than speak. But this human? He cracked jokes while injured. He refused medicine unless it was from a human doctor. He named her guards, Stabby, Grumpy, and Steve. And worst of all, he never showed fear. You don't even know why we're at war, Vari said on day 6. Darryl looked up from his cot. Because your people are bored and we're new, she blinked. That's not wrong, he smirked. Lucky guess. She studied him. This human was different, unpredictable, emotional, dangerous. Not a beast. Not a genius. Something in between. Why do you keep resisting? She asked. Because we're human, he said. We fight, even when it's stupid. That night, a sabotage explosion rocked the palace ship. Human resistance fighters had boarded the vessel. Amid the smoke and chaos, alarms blaring, Darryl kicked open his own chamber door, with a stolen explosive hidden in his fake bandage. Kavari was waiting, not with weapons. With a question. Do you plan to kill me now? Darryl pointed his stolen Zarkalian rifle at her chest, paused, lowered it. No, he said. I want you to see what happens when your perfect empire falls. But then something strange happened. She didn't run. Lady Kavari stood there, elegant and furious, but fascinated. Humans are insane, she whispered. Now you're learning, Darryl said. Then vanished into the smoke. Zarkalian War Council. She let him go? Hissed the high strategist. Why? Lady Kavari's expression stayed unreadable. I wanted to see what he would do. You gave a virus a weapon. No, she said, walking away. I gave fire to the forest. Let's see what grows. Meanwhile on Earth, Darryl returned to a broken resistance base. Half his team was dead. The other half had questions. Why didn't you kill her? His lieutenant demanded. Because she's the key, Darryl said. She doesn't understand us. But she wants to. That's her weakness. What's yours? Someone asked. Darryl looked at the stars. Hope. Kavari's private quarters. She replayed. Darryl's words over and over. He wants me to watch the fall. He thinks emotion is strength. Why does that make my chest feel? Strange. For the first time in her life, Lady Kavari couldn't sleep. Not from fear. From something worse. Doubt. Breaking the perfect mind lady. Alara Kavari was dreaming of fire. But not just any fire, human fire, not from weapons, not from bombs, but from eyes, from hands, from the way a broken soldier smiled like he was winning even while bleeding to death. She woke up shaking. Zarkalians weren't supposed to dream. Not like that, and certainly not about Commander Darryl Bourne. Kavari stared at her reflection, perfect silver skin, sharp violet eyes, braids wound tight like her reputation. She looked flawless, so why did she feel fractured? In the silence of her palace ship, she whispered, He's in my head. Back on Earth, Darryl was already working. Underground bunkers, hidden resistance cells, reprogrammed alien tech. The war wasn't being fought in the open anymore. It was happening in shadows, through sabotage, signals, whispers, and it was Darryl's plan. He knew Lady Kavari was watching, and that was the point. She's not afraid of missiles, he told his team. But she doesn't understand guilt, grief, mercy. We hit her with emotion. We break the mind before the Empire. Meanwhile, on the Zarkalian flagship, Lady Kavari opened a secure file Darryl had left behind, intentionally. It wasn't a threat. Not even data, it was a drawing, a child's drawing. A house, a tree, a sun with a smile. Why give me this? She whispered. Her AI answered. It is labeled home, before the war. Her hand trembled. Zarkalians had no concept of home like this. Not with feelings. Not with warmth. What are you trying to do, human? She whispered again. Why show me what I've never had? The next day, she summoned her scientists. I want to study emotion, she ordered. But lady, that's forbidden. Zarkalians suppress all emotion. It's tradition. She turned, eyes burning. Tradition is weakness. Earth resistance base. She's cracking, Darryl told Lena. The scientist looked skeptical. You really think a drawing will defeat a 1,000-year empire? Not the drawing, he said. What it represents, which is what they can never take from us. In orbit, Kavari made her first mistake. She hesitated during a bombing order, because she remembered that child's drawing, because she wondered, What if they had a home too? Her second-in-command noticed. You're going soft. I'm learning, she replied coldly. From him? A long pause. Then, yes. Later that night, Kavari broke protocol and accessed human media, books, songs, art. She sat in silence, watching an old Earth movie. It was cheesy, full of tears and shouting, but by the end, she was clutching her chest. Why does this hurt? She asked her AI. Because you feel now. My lady, I don't want to. It's too late, Daryl's. Intercepted message, Kavari's. Systems picked up a secret human transmission. It wasn't encrypted, because it was meant for her. I know you're listening, Kavari, so listen carefully. You're not a monster, not yet. But you're standing at the edge of the cliff. The only question is, are you going to fall or fly? She slammed the screen off, but her hand was still shaking. Lady Alara Kavari, the mind-breaker of 4 galaxies, was starting to break. Not from battle, from humanity. From one stubborn, bleeding, sarcastic human who made her dream of things she didn't understand. The experiment fights back, she was screaming. But not with her mouth. Lady Alara Kavari's brain was screaming. Every nerve, every cell, this was not a test. Not a simulation. This was fear. And for the first time in her perfect, controlled life, she didn't know how to shut it off. It started hours ago. Her scientists had warned her, "You've gone too far." Human emotions are unstable. Their memories burn. But she didn't listen. She had connected herself to a stolen human neural net, a device used by Terran soldiers to share data, pain, thoughts. She had wanted to feel what Commander Daryl Bourne felt, to understand the rage, the love, the grief. She hadn't expected to feel everything. All at once, now, her body trembled in her private chamber, barely conscious, while human memories played like firestorms in her mind, a dead child's hand. A lover's goodbye, a war zone soaked in blood and laughter, and still, he kept fighting. How can something so broken still stand? She whispered. Flashback. 12 hours earlier, Daryl and his team had infiltrated a Zarkalian science cruiser. The mission: rescue the test subjects, captured humans, tortured, injected, labeled Specimen 77112. One of them was a child. She couldn't speak. Her mouth had been surgically closed. Daryl carried her out himself. Tell Kavari, he said into her own security feed, that her specimens have names. And they're coming home. Lady Kavari's observation room alarms blared. Fire spread through the lower decks. Drones exploded. Kavari barely noticed. She was still jacked into Daryl's neural code. Still trapped in the fire of his past. I can't breathe, she gasped. I feel too much, but she didn't disconnect. Because deep down she knew this was her punishment. This was her evolution. Meanwhile, on Earth, Daryl stood before a camera, surrounded by rescued survivors. He hit record to every species watching. This is what the Zarkalian Empire does. They take your people. They steal your children. And they call it science. He raised the child whose mouth had been sealed. Her name is Mira. She's 8. And she still tried to smile when I saved her. He looked directly into the lens. You messed with humans. Now the galaxy knows what you are. The transmission went viral. On 10 worlds. In 5 languages. Even Zarkalian citizens, the lower classes, the workers, began to whisper. But inside the palace ship, Lady Kavari was still shaking. Not from guilt, from clarity. They lied to me, she whispered. My whole life. She stood slowly, legs weak, skin sweating. She looked in the mirror, and for the first time didn't see royalty. She saw a test subject, just like the humans. Her assistant entered. My lady, resistance forces have taken Sector 9. Your orders? Kavari turned slowly. You said humans were beneath us. Yes, of course. Then why do I feel like I've been learning from gods? We bleed, therefore we rise. The first time a Zarkalian soldier refused to fire, it shocked the Empire. The second time, it shook the fleet. The third time, it started a revolution. The soldier's name was Unit 8 to 9 Beta. He had no name, only numbers. But when he watched a human child reach out to him through the prison bars, bleeding, crying, and still offering food, something broke. He dropped his weapon and whispered the first word he had not been programmed to say, enough. All across the stars, something was happening. Humanity had stopped fighting alone. Zarkalians were waking up. Earth Underground Command Center Commander Daryl Bourne watched hundreds of new messages come in. I was a scientist. I thought they were just subjects, but your broadcast changed me. Count me in. I was in the breeding labs, no more. I'm freeing the prisoners tonight. I was wrong about your people. I'm ready to fight for you, Lena. The human biologist beside Daryl whispered, "They're not scared of us anymore." "No," Daryl replied. "They're scared of what we've become." Kavari's quarters lady Alara Kavari hadn't slept in days, not because of fear, but because of understanding. She had felt what it meant to lose a friend, to bury a brother, to kiss someone goodbye before battle. Human memories had infected her, and she didn't want the cure. Her second-in-command entered. "The lower ships are refusing orders. Why?" "They say they saw the humans' broadcast." "And they believe him." Kavari turned slowly. "Do you believe him?" "I believe." He hesitated. "I believe we never should have picked this fight." Zarkalian prison transport. Intercepted Daryl led a team through enemy corridors. One by one unlocking prisoner cells. A young woman collapsed into his arms. A former Terran medic, beaten, starved, still alive. "They used me," she whispered. Tested fear. Pain thresholds. "Not anymore," he said, lifting her carefully. "You're going home." But just ahead, a surprise. One of the prison guards, a Zarkalian female, held her weapon. Everyone froze. Then she turned the weapon and handed it to Daryl. "My name is Vera," she said. "Not Beta 6. And I'm done helping monsters." Daryl nodded. "Welcome to the Resistance." Lady Kavari's holographic speech. "Live to all Zarkalians." Kavari stood alone in a massive dark chamber. She activated the galaxy-wide transmitter. For a full 10 seconds she said nothing. Then, softly, "We were wrong. Billions of Zarkalians listened. We said humans were wild animals, that they were unworthy, that they must be controlled. But they bleed, and still rise, they cry, and still fight, they mourn, and still love. I felt their pain. I saw their memories. And we have lost our way." She stepped closer to the feed. "I will no longer fight this war." The transmission cut. Immediate fallout. The Zarkalian High Council declared Lady Kavari a traitor within the hour. A bounty was placed on her. Multiple fleets began mobilizing, not toward Earth, but toward her. The Empire was eating itself back. At Earth Command, Lena gasped. "She just put herself in our fire. She gave us time," Daryl said. Picking up his rifle, "Let's use it." Daryl and Vera now stood side by side, human and Zarkalian. He turned to her and asked, "Why help us?" She looked him dead in the eyes. "Because you taught me something our empire never did." "What?" "That we are not weak for feeling. We are strong because we do." No home left, but as the bounty on Lady Alara Kvari's head was now worth more than an entire planet. Dead or alive. Preferably dead. The orders came from her own people. "She has been infected with the human virus," the council declared. "She no longer thinks like us. She must be erased." She didn't run. She didn't hide. Instead, she did something no Zarkalian noble had done in centuries. She asked humans for help. Inside a hidden Earth resistance base, Daryl Bourne stared at her across the table. She looked smaller now. Not physically, but in her eyes. "The cold was gone. Why are you here?" he asked. "Because I have no home left," she said. "Neither do we," he replied. "So let's build one out of the ashes." Resistance briefing room. Earth Underground. Everyone was tense. A Zarkalian noble in a human war room? Unthinkable. Some wanted her dead. Some wanted to use her. But Daryl had made the call. "She's not our enemy anymore. She's our chance." Lady Kvari stood before the crowd. "I know every weak point in the Council's war fleets. Every commander. Every code. Every lie. But I need your trust." Silence. Then Vera, Zarkalian defector, stood beside her. "She burned the map behind her," Vera said. "She has nowhere else to go. She's one of us now." Kavari's confession later, in private. Kavari sat with Daryl. She held a small cube in her hands, glowing, ancient. "What is it?" he asked. "Something I never thought I'd share. It's my family's genetic key, meant to control fleets. If we use this, We can take down their main command ship. Why give it to me? Because you still believe in things. And I want to believe too. Meanwhile, the betrayal, unknown to them, someone in the resistance, was still loyal to the Council. He had seen Kvari enter. He had sent the signal. Target confirmed. Kvari is inside Earth Command. Attack coordinates uploaded. The countdown had begun. Scene, Nomi's return. Plot twist. As alarms blared, a ship crash-landed on the outskirts of the base. Out came a teenage girl with silver hair, glowing eyes and a bag of mushrooms. Nomi, Daryl ran to her. Shocked! You're alive? Not just alive, she grinned. Upgraded. Nomi held up a new breed of biotech spores. Part Threeks, part Earth, part something else. These mushrooms can eat through starship engines. Fast, quiet, no explosions. Let's infect a fleet. Kvari looked at her in awe. She's a child? She's a human, Daryl corrected. This is what they grow into. The strike plan Kvari, Daryl, Nomi, and Vera stood around a 3D map of the Council's main ship, the Heartfire. They'll never expect a human-Zarkalian alliance, Kvari said. They'll be too busy fighting themselves. Daryl nodded. Then let's give them something to fight. They loaded the new spores, prepped a stolen stealth ship, and aimed for the heart of the Empire. Ready? Daryl asked. I was born for war, Kvari said. I was born hungry, Nomi added. Now I want justice. They launched into the stars. The day the Empire choked, the Empire had no word for mercy. It also had no word for mushroom-powered biological sabotage. But by the end of the day, they would need both above the scorched moon of Velkaris. The Zarkalian Council flagship hovered like a god, 10 kilometers long. Armed with plasma fangs, shielded by centuries of fear. Inside, the Council held its emergency session. We will crush the rebellion, the speaker said. We will erase the traitors, another added. We will find Kvari and... Light blinked red on the main console. Something was growing inside their engine core. The strike team infiltrates Daryl, Kvari, Vera, and Nomi were already aboard. Their stealth pod had pierced the shields using Kavari's genetic key. No one noticed the girl planting spore bombs beneath the fuel cells. No one expected the traitor Noble to lead them to the command deck. Your people will never forgive you, Daryl whispered to Kvari. Then I'll make sure it's worth it, she replied. The confrontation, Zarkalian Council chambers, they didn't sneak. They walked in, together, like an answer to a question the galaxy had been too afraid to ask. What happens when enemies choose each other over everything else? The Council stood, weapons drawn, eyes glowing. Kvari, human, traitors. Do you think this will change anything? Daryl stepped forward, calm, controlled. No, he said. We didn't come to change your minds. He tapped his comm. We came to break your ship. Below deck, spores bloomed like flowers of vengeance. The Threeks hybrids devoured the power conduits. Quiet, perfect, absolute. The Council screamed. Alarms exploded. Shield generators failed. Gravity tilted. Kvari raised her weapon. So did Vera. For the first time in history, two Zarkalians aimed their guns at their own empire. Not for power, but for peace. Tragedy strikes, a guard fired blindly. The bolt hit Nomi. She fell. Daryl caught her, cradling the girl in his arms, heart collapsing. Nomi, stay awake. She smiled weakly, purple blood on her lips. Told you. Vegetables could be dangerous. Kvari dropped to her knees beside her. She tried to stop the bleeding. Useless. Why did you come, child? Nomi coughed. Because no one ever came for us. She died before the ship exploded. The fall of the Empire. Across the galaxy, Zarkalian control systems blinked out. Warships powered down. Slaves stood up. The Empire didn't fall in fire, it choked. On spores, on guilt. On the silence after a child's last breath. 1 week later. A new world Daryl stood on a red hill. Beside him, Vera. Behind them, Kvari, scarred but free. Below them, a grave, Nomi's grave, her name carved in both human and Zarkalian script. She fed the galaxy, the stone read. Not with food. With hope, Kvari stepped forward. She dropped something beside the grave, a small mushroom. pale violet, alive. Her spores are growing, she whispered. In every corner of space, Galaxy Broadcast Daryl looked into the camera. My name is Daryl Bourne. I was a soldier. I was trained to destroy, but today, I offer something else. He held a tomato in one hand, a mushroom in the other. We bleed, but we rise. And when we rise together, you won't survive. The signal was sent. Across systems, across time. To every species still living in fear, to every child still crying into empty hands. Closing image. The camera pans to a field of red tomatoes and glowing mushrooms. Children of every species play together. Laugh. Grow. In the sky above, a ship is renamed the Nomi Star. Final, they messed with humans. And now they grow what we left behind. If you enjoyed this video, like this video, subscribing, and clicking the bell icon to stay updated with fresh content every day.